Hey guys, it's Ash and P.
Hey. Are you getting sick of my hate?
Gosh. No, I don't know. I was just like, what are we doing?
It's been a long day, guys, already.
Oh my gosh, yes.
We've had our day job.
Yes.
And then so the two girls are in swim right now.
Yeah.
So I leave work a few minutes early, run and grab them from daycare, hope that daycare has them somewhat put together, run them to swim. And then Tony takes Tristan to karate, and then we come back, and then it's by the time he gets back and I'm home with the kids and I get them in the tub and everything, it's like, he's pretty much got to turn around and go back to get her almost, it's almost like that. The hour goes by so fast.
Yeah.
You've got to get your kids off to karate at 2 different times.
Oh my gosh. I know. I cannot wait until they're in the same class.
Yeah.
I have a year and a half.
Oh gosh.
So it's not happening soon.
I know. Well, and I really want to put Gigi in, but I'm like, oh my gosh. She's supposed to start soccer though. Next month, so that'll be
something. And then maybe after soccer.
Maybe we'll see.
See
how it goes. Anyway, it's been a long
day. Yeah.
We're here. We made it. We survived.
We are here.
Okay, so last episode we kind of left off in we want to talk about step parenting, really.
Yes.
Was kind of our topic for this week. And I think that we both have really good stories because we both come from opposite sides.
Right.
On that.
Yes.
So, but we both come from blended families.
Right.
So we both have backgrounds of dealing with a step parent or a blended, in a blended family.
Yeah.
And I want to talk to you because you came into your relationship with Jason and he had 2 little girls.
Yes.
And you were like a tiny baby.
Little girl myself.
Yeah. You were 20, right?
Yeah, 20.
And so how does a 20-year-old not get scared off with a guy with 2 kids? Who doesn't have any herself because you didn't have any.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes I look back and I have no idea.
Right.
I don't because I feel like at 20 years old, really it is, how do you not think like, oh my gosh, no, that's like too much to undertake?
Because it is a lot.
It is a lot. It is.
It's a lot. I
don't know if it's because, so I have like the older siblings. So I have my 2 younger brothers. They obviously had kids later than I did, even my own biological, but my sisters had kids. So I don't know if it's because my sisters had kids, so it didn't scare me. My sisters, they unfortunately, they weren't married to their, the father of their child. So it wasn't like they had him there and, that kind of thing. They kind of like did it on their own. So like whenever, say, my sister started dating someone else, they were coming into something where there was someone already who had kids. So I don't know if maybe it just wasn't as intimidating because I was around it. I was used to it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. It is something that I think back now that if I had been a little older, I might have been like, oh, no way.
Yeah.
No way. I don't know if it was because I was naive. I don't know if my sister Jennifer and I are very close in age, and she had my nephew when we were young. And so I'm, used to kids.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing.
And the kids were, you said like 4 and 6. Is that right? The girls
4 and 6.
So they were in school, but Jason didn't live in the same town as they did. Right.
Right.
So I guess you had to really kind of just work around when he had the girls.
Right. So when they were little, even as they got older and into activities and things like that, we would have them less often than, when they were very little, it was every other weekend, like,
Yeah.
clockwork. As they got older, activities happen, and you
Life
can't
starts
say
to happen,
no. You
and-
can't. You can't go to
Right.
your game. That's
Right.
horrible. So,
Right.
but yeah, it was just every other weekend, and then holidays and things like that.
Were the girls pretty easy that little?
They were. There are honestly only a handful of times that I can say, like, that like something went wrong.
Yeah.
So they made it easy too. And they were good with me.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I didn't ever have anything where the girls didn't like me. It was somewhere
which
like,
some people do.
Yeah.
Some people do. It's Tristan never really gave like she was so little. She didn't really give him a hard time like that.
Mm-hmm.
But there were definitely times where it was like, they've got to say like, well, my dad or my mom, like they need to make sure that presence is known.
Yeah.
In the picture. And I think sometimes it made Tony gun shy to do things because he didn't want to make it seem like he was trying to take that spot or trying to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And the girls, I was always very careful about that. Like when, I don't know how long we had been dating, but Kyla had asked me like, can I call you mom? And at that point it was like, I really didn't want for their mom to be upset about something like that. Like I didn't want her to be hurt by it.
That's so sweet of you. Not everyone's like that either.
And now it's like, now I look back and I'm like, well, like, I don't know, maybe I should have told her she could.
Yeah.
But also at that time, it wasn't like Jason and I were engaged or anything like that,
Right.
So I would hate for her to be calling me mom. And then what if things didn't work out,
Yeah.
But then, so I just told her like, I can be your Ashley. And so there's that, which like Deja comments sometimes like about a friend of hers, they're a blended family and they're all like mom, like that kind of thing. Which it wasn't ever anything like, no, please don't do that. It was that I didn't want her to be hurt by it.
Yeah.
Like I remember thinking, if I had my own, would I want them calling someone else mom?
Yeah.
I don't know that I would.
Yeah.
And so it was more, I didn't
especially
want to
early
hurt her.
on, probably in the relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and then, time goes on and now, obviously they're older and that kind of thing. But, it's like, they're my daughters. I don't care. I can be their mom. I can be their Ashley. I can be whatever,
Yeah, that's sweet. And I always think like, Tony is Tony. He's not like, he's not stepdad or every once in a while she'll say things like especially when she's talking with the girls and say like the little ones, like dad's going to be back or something like that, and it's like just whatever. Cause we're talking about our, family, but, she never asked to call him dad. And I think he probably would have felt the same way.
Yeah.
And I think about him going into it and here he is, I coming from a marriage, you know, and like you, and we were obviously together for a long time. And he was trying to really like watch how he said things with her, with me, didn't really want to like rock the boat. And you just don't know what you're going to get when you walk into a relationship like that. You don't know if the kids are going to be difficult, if the exes are going to be difficult, or what may come from that.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the girls, here's our littles. I say ours like they belong to me as well, but the little girls are coming in. But when it came to the girls and, making sure that I wasn't overstepping my bounds, that their mom, I never wanted their mom to be hurt by anything. Just because, I mean, it's their mom. You don't want to, I don't know. You don't want, that's a different relationship,
It is. And
what I think with your mom.
I think you just have to go into it knowing like you can't push anything, you can't rush anything, and you hope and pray that just like we do with our own kids, that one day they will see all that you've done.
Yeah.
Right? Like
absolutely.
There are times even now I say, and she's my daughter, I'm like, I can only hope and pray that she sees that the reasons why I say the things I do, or the reasons why I do the things I do, are because I love her and because that's, me trying to do what's best for her. And I think that's coming from the same thing. And I think we kind of said this on the last episode, but I look at Tony as he's a parent. He's one of her parents. You are one of the girls' parents,
right? Because
you guys have been there since they were so little, and you do help raise, because you may not be mom, but you are helping raising them. Because let's face the facts. Most dads, when they are in a relationship with someone else, whether they're married or girlfriend, you guys, you're needed as the woman of the house,
right?
To help him with the kids. Yeah. And same thing, really. I mean, he became such a big help with helping me get her to and from, getting her to and from orthodontist appointments and, practices and whatever, and you take on that role.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's hard when there's pushback. I think it was hard for Tony when he didn't know where his boundary line was when she was giving an attitude.
Yeah.
Or, and I encourage this with friends who have kids, whoever the parent, the biological parent is, whether it's the dad or the mom, make sure that the spouse isn't the one that is always having to deal with this stuff.
Which I think I mentioned that last time too, is that there became a point where I told Jason, and I think, we've talked about this in the past. I think a lot of times when a dad is, they don't always have their kids. They a lot of times don't want to
be the
feel like the bad guy. Yeah. Yeah. They don't, they only have their kids for so long, and they want it to be good and fun and happy, and they don't want to have to go down that route. But it's also not fair for, the partner of that parent to have to do all of that part.
Because there are things, even on the short weekends or whatever, that you do have to deal with. It's
absolutely,
there's attitudes, or there's just picking up after yourselves, or there's, whatever things, being nice, using manners, whatever it is that they do that kind of has to be nipped when you are with them. They can't, if you don't, then they just fully walk all over you guys as a couple, and they just take advantage of the situation. Because kids do that. That's what they're going to do.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that you're right with that. I think it's probably a lot easier or harder. I should say harder when the parent who has the kids for the shorter amount of time has to do that, because they don't necessarily want to waste their time being like, with the kid that's in trouble, they want to be able to enjoy their kids.
Yeah. But it's all a part of parenting. You have to, unfortunately, sometimes the girls would come and they'd be grounded from their phones. And, if they leave it at mom's, then it makes it easy because we don't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
But, there's also those times where it's like, their mom would call them like, you need to talk to your daughter. And it's like, I can only imagine on her side, there were probably times where she's like, give me a break, because we are a couple hours away. Right. We're not there during the week. And so she's probably like, gosh, I need some help, So there were times like that too.
Yeah.
And
I never felt so So in my situation, he really wasn't involved in the day-to-day for quite a while. But it worked when she's in elementary school or whatever. It's fine. It works. When they're little like that, it works. But as they get a little bit older and into their teenage years, that's when you really need their help. Oh, hi. Okay.
That's the little one.
So when she became a teenager, it was like, okay, it doesn't get easier when they become teens in the sense of, maybe I don't need to bathe them.
Right.
And
they do
change their
those
diaper,
things. Yeah.
But I need hands-on on all cylinders. I need it with school. I need it with, the phone, taking the phone away. And it was very helpful that for the most part, as she got older, he was, whatever I said, like, hey, she's in trouble right now.
Right.
She can't.
Yes.
He was able to comply and it just made it so much easier. I mean, he was like, okay, if she's in trouble, then she's in trouble here too.
Yeah. Because if you can't be on the same page with that has got to be something else.
Yeah.
Anytime, we only had them every other weekend. So anytime they were in trouble and their mom, if their mom said, they're in trouble, it was like, okay, well, they're in trouble. There wasn't a whole lot for them to do because their life was 2 hours away. So that did make it easier for us on those types of things. But it is one of those things where you do have to be that support. You can't just, oh, it's the weekend, you're at dad's, and now you get to have, free reign, do whatever you want. I mean, you were obviously bad enough to where you got grounded, but, no, have fun now,
Right.
So, yeah, that is awesome that he, didn't fight you on any of that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, luckily I didn't have to deal with that. You didn't have to deal with that, but I'm sure there are plenty of people that do.
Yeah. And I mean, and like I said, I come from a blended family, and I mean, even I'm older, much older than my brothers, in a sense of like, I got to see really even my parents deal with the parents, and watch them try to co-parent other children.
Yeah.
And I mean, there were times where it was like, it's so, you see what it can do. And even when the couple is in love and they are, they have everything on their end in their marriage seems to be great, but raising a child that isn't theirs together and that you have other parents' influences on is challenging.
Yeah, for sure. Because there were times where it was like, I almost felt like I just want to throw in the towel, because it is difficult when you can't raise a child the way that you want to. If the way that you're, like, the rules that your child has or something like that is different than what you would want, the way you would want to raise them, it's difficult. When they're your own biological kids, you can do whatever you want. You can raise them however you want, discipline them however you want. But when there's that other party who doesn't see things the way you do and doesn't want to, handle things the way that you would, it is difficult. You definitely have to respect it.
Right.
But it is hard. And sometimes it's just like,
I think one of the hardest issues with blended families is co-parenting with other parents. Yeah. You get to pick your partner, but you don't get to pick your partner's ex.
No, not at all. Yeah.
That could be an issue.
Yeah, for sure.
And I didn't really, there's this saying that was really it was a really cool saying about there's, it's like there's you and me, and then there's like us, and I think that coming from a blended family, I definitely had a lot of eyes on things, even watching Tony and Tristan's relationship grow.
Right.
And I was able to kind of try to guide him in certain ways and say, don't, do this, don't do this. I mean, and I will say I'm one to, I will always try, if I have differences with our parenting approach, pull him to the side and take him to the room and say, I don't agree.
Right.
I don't agree with the way you're handling it. I don't agree with whatever. I never wanted to ever do that in front of any of my kids.
Should not ever.
And no. And it has helped us continuously be one.
Yes.
And whatever he says, whatever I say. If he happens to change his mind after we went to the room and I had to talk to him for a second, then that's
fine. Yeah.
And vice versa. I mean, there have been plenty of times where he's talked me off a ledge and said, chill, or hey, don't do that. Like, think about it for a second. But yeah, I will tell you that is probably one of the biggest things that I had to kind of remember from early on, is you never want to see the parents fighting about the way about how to parent.
No. And I mean,
same thing in front of the ex. You never want the ex to know that there's differences in your parenting. That is between your relationship, not for the other parents to know.
Yes. Because
that's
it will too. I think it's the same with the ex and with the kids, because like you had mentioned, kids are going to do, like, if you give them that space, they're going to take it, right? Like, you cannot allow your children to think that there's a weakness there that they can potentially, I mean, not to say like, oh my gosh, kids are so manipulative, but kids want what they want. Kids want things to go the way they want them to go. So if they can figure out a way to get things to go their way, because maybe they see this weakness because you and Tony are now arguing with each other in front of her about how, like, you shouldn't be saying this, blah, 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 then, they're going to work on that weakness. Yeah. And same thing with an ex, they can use that information against you for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think we need to take a little break really quick.
Yes.
And we'll be right back.
Perfect.
Hey guys, we are back from our break.
And we are ready to go with, I feel like, a second part of step parenting.
Okay.
It's kind of step parenting, co-parenting.
Yes.
I feel like we need to get your perspective. So I guess my question to you would be either, how do you do it? Or what is your insight into being in between your current husband and your ex-husband?
Yeah.
Like, as a package deal of parenting, and then being in between Tony and Tristan.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's start with this. When it comes to my ex and Tony, I think that I was very lucky in the sense of my ex knew who Tony was.
Oh, okay.
We like I've said before, I've known Tony for 15 years. So he even knew who he was.
Okay.
And he thought he was a very good guy.
Oh, good.
From the very beginning. And he even, like, I remember when I finally told him that I was seeing him, because eventually you have to have that awkward conversation.
Was that hard? Was that, I know this is a little side, but was that a difficult conversation?
I don't think it was difficult. It was just awkward because I didn't know. I mean, I kind of made mention in previous episodes that, there definitely was a big time afterwards,
Right.
where he still
tried
to get back with me. And it was like, oh no, this is way, we are way past that point. Like we are way past that. So, and he knew I was seeing someone. He didn't know who I was seeing.
Okay.
So when I finally told him who it was, and we probably started seeing someone in a serious relationship about the same time.
Oh, okay. That probably made it a little easier.
Yes. So when I kind of told him, well, I want you to know, like, I did tell you in the beginning, like once I started seeing someone and bringing them around, I would let you know. And, this is who he is. And he was like, oh, he's like, well, Tony's a nice guy. And,
right. Probably felt very comfortable with T being around him.
He did. It didn't mean that he was always so awesome afterwards.
No, I'm sure.
Yeah, we definitely still had our issues after. He wasn't like, okay, great, all is good. But
it wasn't like, well, who is he? What does he do? Does he have,
right.
It wasn't all because, you had made mention before, as a single mom, you had to, and I'm sure as your ex, that's probably something he had to be concerned with as well.
Yes.
And it being Tony made it easier.
Right. And he had said, he's like, he knew how I was. He knew obviously that I had trust issues and all those other things that he said it didn't really seem surprising for him that it would be someone that I already knew. Because I felt comfortable already, Right. And so, it was nice that he was good with him in that very beginning. And I was good with his person. He dated her that it never came. I mean, they dated for quite a few years. They dated for a long time, but nothing ever came out of that. They never got married or anything like that.
Can I ask a quick question about that? Yeah. So did you ever, with Tristan obviously being a girl, did you ever have to worry anything about, like, obviously when we talk about concerns about a daughter and a stepfather, it is that concern of, obviously we have sexual abuse issues that we're concerned with. Is there ever anything where you're worried about something odd like that with the woman?
Not totally. I think I was more so gosh. So if I go back to, my real dad, my biological father, he remarried pretty much like right after, like that's the only woman I ever knew him with. I didn't know him with my mom at all. And he was in and out of my life from an early age. And she was never abusive to me. And my dad was, my biological father was in and out of jail. So my relationship with him was very few and far between until I finally made the decision as I was older to completely not have a relationship with him. And with her, she was not nice to me all the time.
So you say she wasn't abusive, but because from things that I've heard, I feel like she was maybe psychologically abusive.
I don't think that she ever meant to be.
Okay.
Now that I'm an adult, right? I see that. I don't think she ever meant to be, but boy, did she make a little girl feel really bad.
Yeah.
She really did. I really did. I really did not feel comfortable at all.
Yeah.
It was very known that I was an outsider.
Yeah.
And that's
that's
the
part of the
way.
family.
Yes. And when we go into like our childhood stuff, we definitely have to get into that. But I think for me, I was more afraid of Tristan feeling like that with a stepmom.
Yeah. You wanted to make sure she was
I didn't want her
treated
to feel
well.
Yeah, I didn't want her to feel like she was a stepchild, like the stepchild. I didn't want her to feel that way.
Right.
That was my concern. And another concern was he was not, obviously we divorced for many reasons, but one of the big reasons is he was not mature enough to be an adult and a father and a husband and all of those things at the time.
Yeah.
And I was nervous that him being with friends, him living with roommates.
Oh, that would be scary.
Those were the
bigger
things that were
like
concerns.
Okay.
And he was very aware. And I think, he is, we could probably both say a lot of things about each other, but he is very aware of those situations and how I feel and what has happened to me, that he did take those into very big considerations.
That's good.
I know he did in his heart. It doesn't always mean that he made the best decision.
Right.
And so I was very skeptical on that end of like, okay, I'm, where is she sleeping? Where is, I need to know where she's sleeping. I need to know who's in your house. I need to know who your roommate is. And, I'm not comfortable with roommates or anything like that. And those were kind of more of my concerns with that side. But he felt pretty okay with me telling him it was Tony.
That's
probably good. Because it was Tony, but and it may not have gone that way if it was
someone else
or someone else.
I have a feeling it probably wouldn't because he would have then those concerns.
Yeah.
Knowing who Tony is and knowing that type of, background on him, I'm assuming made it easier for your ex.
And I was always the person that spoke to the ex, right? Like I never had, and this is where I feel like sometimes on the flip side of that, had I been the man in the situation and Tony being the female, sometimes the females speak more. And sorry, that's my dog.
Missy. I was like, what in the world?
They seem to communicate more with each other.
Okay.
Tony and my ex never really communicated with each other. Very rare. If they did, it was like this special breed of something.
Yeah.
I was in between.
I don't think I did not. I mean, about say in person, we would speak. But if there was something going on, if there was something that needed to be addressed, it always went directly to Jason.
That's good.
We didn't speak a lot, because my opinion on that was always, they are the girl's mother and father.
Yes.
So if they are discussing things when it comes to discipline and things like that, and I mentioned before, sometimes it's hard because somebody may not parent the way that you would parent.
Yeah.
But I think my point of view is they are the parents, and I'm a step parent, and I mean, there are always going to be those things where I have to do discipline, but when it comes down to really making those decisions, I think it needs to be biological mom, biological dad.
That is probably a big saving grace in all of your guys' relationships, because I have many friends and I have many family members who go through this, and they say, like, as the woman, as the secondary, right? They are dog. They are texting or calling the ex. Yes, the ex.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work that way.
Right.
It doesn't work good.
Right. Yeah. I couldn't imagine, because when those conversations are being had, I feel like those are decisions that are being made.
Yes.
And I don't think that when it comes down to like the important things, I think that is between them.
Well, and it causes friction because, you are talking about a secondary person coming into a relationship that was there at some point, that was existing, that's existing. And I could say the same, I guess, about a woman, but I do find that sometimes it's easier for a man to go, well, you call the mom or call my girlfriend or call my wife. And it's like,
I could see that.
Those two shouldn't probably have a relationship because,
my girl's mom, her and I, we do talk here and there. Like sometimes we'll message about a show or, something like that. And we have a girlfriend who's like, I don't understand how you do that. And I'm like, because it's like the relationship there may have been strain when the girls were younger.
Time has passed.
Time
probably.
has passed. The girls are much older.
And
we're
maybe-
not having discussions
Yeah.
about raising our girls
Right.
anymore. There's not that type of disagreement. There's, financials aren't involved anymore. There's
Well,
none of that.
That's a big thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
So it's like I can have a conversation with her and it be totally fine because there's not a lot that's going to cause an issue between us. We just don't have those things happening anymore.
And I just say, I mean, we've had this conversation before with friends who have been in these situations, and we tell the wife, the new wife,
right,
don't deal with the ex.
No.
Let him deal with her, because it only causes more stress
right.
on everyone.
Right. And like what you said, that could have been my saving grace. If I had to deal with decision making and things like that, making arrangements and whatnot with his ex, it would have given me so much more stress. I have anxiety as it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to add anything else on. And I would be anxious about things that they were discussing, just knowing knowing his side of what was happening.
Right.
So to be involved, it's like, that is so much more.
Yes.
It really doesn't need to be. You don't need to do that to yourself, for sure.
And I think that helped us a lot, is that I was the in-between for them.
Yeah.
I just dealt with it, and I don't think there was ever, there were definitely times where maybe he may have said something snarky to me about Tony, and
yeah.
and I'm one to let's just cut it.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna walk away from that conversation, because if I don't, I'm gonna get really upset.
Right.
We don't want that.
Yeah.
So I'll cut it, and he's the kind that after he says it, he's kind of done.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of whatever. So so there were times where things were like that in the very beginning, but for the most part, we were lucky enough that, as me being the in between, I was able to kind of.
I feel like they, and obviously I am seeing this completely from the outside, but I feel like they, their relationship, they're good with each other.
They are.
They're both respectful of each other. They're not weird.
No.
No. I feel like they have a kind of an ideal relationship.
It's taken us a long time.
Oh,
and
sure.
I will say this for anyone who goes, oh my gosh, I'm going through this right now, and there's absolutely no way I will ever have that person in my home, or blah, 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 blah. I
would have thought that too.
I didn't either. And there were many times where I was like, we can never, I don't know, when Tristan gets married, how are we going to ever do this?
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
But I will tell you that in recent months, he has come in and sat at our kitchen table, and we've all had a family discussion. And when I say family discussion, I mean me, him, Tristan, and Tony.
Yeah.
And we've all sat there and talked about it. And I got to give him credit where credit is given. And that is that he has really stepped up, and he is really, we've got a groove now, but it does take time.
Yeah. she's
going to be 16 this year.
Yeah.
It takes time. It takes patience. It takes prayer. It takes understanding when you don't want to be understanding. It takes growing.
Yeah.
I think, everyone had to grow.
Yeah.
Some more than others.
Yeah.
But whatever it is. And it took also just, having an open mind and heart to, even though maybe you feel like that other parent has failed for several years,
right,
or whatever it is, it wasn't up to par or whatever, that times can turn around as well.
And you have to be willing to, which I think you've all done a great job with. Maybe he wasn't as involved, but now he really has stepped up, and everyone has been open to that stepping up, I guess. I don't know how to word that to where it doesn't sound funny, but everyone has been very open and accepting of maybe he's not who he was 5 years ago. Right. And he really can attribute some great things. You know,
Right.
there are things that have happened, like you said, in recent months where it was really, he stepped up, and it's like, it's just one of those, it's just a relief
Yes.
because you have that, even though he's an ex, like that partner in parenting.
Yes.
You know, because
Yes.
co-parenting, whether you're together or not, you still have to be a partner.
Yes.
And it's good to have that, that additional, what would it be called? Like, he's putting in the work too.
Yeah, support. It's
Yeah, that additional
it's
support.
Yeah, it's support. And I'll say this about Tony and Tristan's relationship is, as I think we've all learned to grow with each other and figure out each other's ways, and don't get me wrong, we all can still push each other's buttons and whatever.
Sure.
But as we've all learned to adapt to that, it's only made things easier for her and her transition from home to home.
That's good.
You know, and
That's
I
good.
see that has flowed nicely. And
Good.
and like I said earlier, I mean, I'm telling you, the kids are a lot of work.
Yeah.
My little ones are a lot of work.
Yeah.
Everyone hears them screaming and hollering
Here
in the
they are.
background. You know,
Here they are.
I mean, they are a lot of work.
Toddlers they require
Yes.
so much.
Yes.
Yeah.
But teens do too.
Yes.
And they just need it in a different way.
Absolutely.
And I feel like if ever there was a time for us to come together, it would be now, because thank goodness, I feel like she's on a different level than.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously you want that additional support the entire time
Right,
your child's
absolutely.
growing, but it is really vital right now. And it's so nice that it's there.
And so don't be afraid. And I'll say this as the parent who maybe they're the constant, right? Like I feel like I was always the constant.
Right.
I was the regular. And,
Yeah.
and dad was on the weekends, or dad was every other weekend, or whatever it is. When that other parent is willing and able to finally make that turn, don't ever feel like it's too late, because it's not. Because I feel like you never know when that person might surprise you. And that surprise could change and make the best decision for your child's life.
Absolutely.
You know?
And that's where I'm like, you have to be open to it, because if you feel like it's never going to change, it's always going to be this way, you know, and you're stuck in that, you may not be open to accept that.
Right.
When it really is the best thing for your kid.
Right. And I've got to tell you, when we're talking about step parenting and everything, and although I make it sound like maybe everything is like a lot easier in some areas than most in STEM, than some, but there were definitely still times where, you know, Tristan and Tony had their differences.
Oh,
and they
absolutely.
still do. I mean, they still do, but I mean, I do as well.
Yeah.
You know, she's
they're
15.
always going to with their parents.
Right. But it's patience on their end as well, and patience on mine.
Yeah.
If they find their groove.
Do you feel like you in between the two? Is there ever
referee moments?
Yeah. Or like, because
Yeah.
I'm sure there are times where you're like, okay, I mean, Tony calms you down at times. Like,
Yes.
Okay, just leave her be. Let me handle this.
Yes.
Like you are on a level 10
Yeah.
and let's get you out of there. I need
Right.
to come in as the
Yes.
cool cucumber
Yes.
type thing.
And there are times, I mean, I think that every parent has their buttons, right?
Oh, yeah.
And every kid
knows how to push them.
they know. I think that at this point where we are now, so we are at 10 years later, he's just another parent.
Yeah.
And she just pushes the buttons like she pushes mine.
Yeah.
We just have different buttons.
Was there ever a time that you feel like things were different, or was she always accepting as him as her stepdad?
She was not. You know, it's interesting because I don't think she ever fought it, and she never was. Like I said, she would sometimes say things like my dad, like about my dad, or she would throw out this random like good story about her dad. And most of the time it's right when we're pissed off at him, right? So you're
right.
like, who the hell
Yeah.
cares about
Oh,
that?
gosh,
Here
yeah.
we go. You know, my dad,
Yeah.
this kid has no idea,
Right.
Whatever. But we would just be like, oh, okay, that's a great
you have
story.
to smile and act
That
like
sounds
it's so awesome.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Your dad is awesome.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they always seem to get along. And it's the weirdest thing because, so like I said before, Tony and I did not get married for 6 years into
Which
our
my son, my
relationship.
oldest Hayden, he thinks he like still after he heard the podcast when you said that, he's just like, Mom, 6 years.
I know.
He didn't marry 6 years. That's a long time, Mom.
Yeah, I had to be sure. Okay.
I'm like, I know, but it happened.
I know. But I'll never forget when Tony proposed to me, which that's even a funny story. But when Tony proposed to me, and I told him to stop, but I didn't mean him to stop, but I was just like, stop, like, what are you doing? I asked him, I said, did you talk to Tristan? And he goes, oh my gosh, no. Like, I talked to your mom, I talked to your dad, I talked to your family, I talked to your friend. Like, he's talked to everybody.
Yeah.
But he's like, I didn't talk to her. He's like, oh my God. Like, he felt so terrible. Like, he
I
totally messed up. Like, he was, and I was like, it's okay. Like, she's a little kid.
He's like,
whatever.
I take it back. Let me talk to T first.
And so we talked to her and she starts bawling. And she starts bawling. And we're like, oh, like she must be happy because honestly, for the most part,
you guys lived together. You guys had bought your house.
Oh yeah.
You guys had moved. It wasn't like, you guys were
we're
together.
We're talking like 5 years into our relationship. Yeah. And so everything seemed fine. And she was bawling and we're like, oh, what's wrong? And so now, of course, he's feeling even smaller, right? Like, what the heck did I do?
Yes.
And she said, she was sad because it meant that I was never going to get back with her dad.
Oh.
And
like kids struggle with that.
And
so much.
and I'm thinking like, you still thought that was a
possibility?
What?
Did you hear a proposal or not? That's not happening.
At what point did we stop thinking that?
Yeah. But, I think kids do struggle though.
They do.
Even though they know, you had a complete life with Tony. You guys had lived together. You guys bought a house together. You guys are raising T together, all these things. But I think for some reason, there's that kind of disconnect for kids.
Yes. And I think it was hard for Tony to hear that.
Oh, I can't. If I had heard that, like, because I'm on Tony's and, that would be devastating.
Yeah.
And
I had to kind of figure out how to reassure. Here I am like, okay, it's breaking my heart that my kid is hurting like this.
Yeah.
But I'm like, trying to reassure him, like, it has nothing to do with you.
Yes.
This is a made
she's
up
not saying
facade
she
in her
hates
head.
you. She, none of that is different.
No,
she still loves
and
him.
I feel like one thing that we have to be aware of as parents is somehow, for some reason, there are a lot of kids who have this facade of what their parents were.
Oh, absolutely.
That they remember these good moments of like, no, we were happy. No, we weren't. No, we were never happy. That you remember that.
Right.
No, that was not.
And if we're doing our job, our kids don't realize.
Right. But, right. But there are so many times where that never comes up. Right. And then you hear something like that and you're like, oh my gosh.
They don't realize all of the horrible things and the reasons why we are not together or going to be together.
So that was difficult. That was probably one of the difficult things, but we got through it. And I'll say making her be a part of our wedding as much as she was amazing.
I think she loved it.
She loved it. She loved it. She got to be a part of the wedding. Everything everything that we could think of,
They included her.
the bridal shower, the day of, she got all the same gifts that all the other girls got.
Right.
She went with me to pick my dress.
She was there. Like, I remember
she walked
her.
me down the aisle.
I know.
She walked me down the aisle, and she was up there, and
she got to have her friends.
Yes. I invited her friends that she wanted to invite. We had a special part of the ceremony where before we said our vows to each other, we said them to the three of us. And she was up there with us.
And Tony's dance with her. That was
like my favorite. Yeah,
I
can't listen to that Bruno Mars song without thinking of that moment.
Yeah.
Because that was
really special.
That was very special.
It's beautiful seeing that.
And like I said, and now you would never know. He's just another parent that she tries to push everyone's buttons to. So.
I love it. It's great. So that's a little bit of a glimpse into blended families, step parenting, all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
So next week
we'll be back. We'll be back next Wednesday.
We will be back next Wednesday, 5 a.m. Also, stay tuned. We are hoping later this week we will have an announcement on how to enter our swap giveaway.
Yay.
So keep paying attention to what we're doing.
Keep paying attention. If you do not follow us, please make sure you follow us at Real Ash and P on Instagram and Facebook.
Yes. And then don't forget, you can always share our posts. You can repost our stories, repost our posts, and all of that good stuff. We really do appreciate your support.
And if you have any questions or
any topics you want us to discuss,
please let us know. We are not going to be shy. We've said we're all in.
We are.
So 100%. Whatever it is, it's real talk. And it's how we have survived this long.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So thanks so much for listening, and we will catch up with you later.
Yeah, thanks for swapping with us. Today's music was brought to you by Callie Grace. If you love this young and upcoming girl as much as I do, you'll want to follow her on Instagram and Facebook at Callie Grace Music, and you can download her songs on Spotify and Apple iTunes.